It's funny how life can feel like it's unfolding perfectly, like you're walking down a straight road with no detours, no bumps, just a smooth, uneventful path ahead. That's how I thought everything was going, right up until the day everything changed. I never wanted to believe in fate or destiny. To me, life was something you built through choices, not some grand plan. But sometimes, I think maybe fate was laughing at me, leading me right to this point, making me question everything I thought I knew. My name is Archer, and I don't have a story to tell you. At least, not one you'd expect. I've never been one for drama, never been the kind of guy to make a scene. I live my life like most people. Get up, go to work, come home. It was simple, and honestly, I liked it that way. I had a good job, a decent apartment, and a wife, Kara. Now, I know what you're thinking. Here we go, another story about a guy who finds out his wife's been cheating. But trust me, this isn't that kind of story. Not even close. You see, I wasn't the type to be paranoid. I didn't snoop, didn't read messages, or check her phone. I believed in trust, and I thought I had built something solid. I didn't need to micromanage. Life was good, at least that's what I thought. It all started with the safe. We had a small, unremarkable house on the edge of the city. Quiet neighborhood, no drama. Kara and I were comfortable. I worked in finance, and she was a writer. The kind of life where we didn't have a lot to argue about. We were what people would call low-key. But then there was this one thing about our house, the safe. It wasn't a big one, nothing fancy. It was built into the wall in the hallway, hidden behind a small painting of a cityscape. It was an odd thing to have in a house like ours, but it was there, and we both knew it. I never thought much of it. Kara was the one who insisted on it when we first moved in. Just in case, she'd say. At first, it seemed harmless. She'd put important documents in there, things like our marriage certificates, a few family heirlooms, and the occasional piece of jewelry she wanted to keep safe. But something changed about a year ago. I started noticing her paying more attention to the safe. She'd take extra care locking it when she'd go out, like it was some sacred thing. One day, I caught her entering the code, but instead of the usual quick tap, she seemed to pause, like she was double-checking something. I shrugged it off. People get nervous, I thought. But then, one evening, I returned home early from a business trip. It was around 6 p.m., a little earlier than expected, and I walked into the house to find it. Quiet. Too quiet. Kara was nowhere to be found. Her car was parked outside, and the lights in the house were on, but she wasn't there. I checked the kitchen, living room, then went upstairs. No sign of her. But as I passed the hallway, I noticed something. The painting of the cityscape was crooked. I wouldn't have thought twice about it. Except the painting was always perfectly straight. I've never been one to pay attention to details, but this was strange. I walked over, adjusted it, and there it was, the safe, open. It wasn't just unlocked, it was wide open. The door was hanging ajar, and I could see the edges of a manila envelope sticking out, something I'd never seen before. My heart rate kicked up a notch. I didn't know why I was nervous. Maybe it was the way the safe was exposed like that. Or maybe it was the fact that I'd never seen her leave it open. I didn't want to look inside. I really didn't. But my curiosity got the better of me. I reached forward and pulled out the envelope. The contents inside were nothing like I expected. There were photographs. And not the kind you'd expect. No vacation photos, no family pictures. These were pictures of Kara. But not just any pictures. They were taken in secret, candid shots of her at places I knew she hadn't told me about. Pictures of her meeting someone, talking to someone, and not in a casual way. My heart sank as I flipped through them. The images were detailed, as if someone had been following her. There were photos of her walking down a street, stepping into a coffee shop, and even one of her laughing with a man in a park, his face blurred, but everything else was perfectly clear. I didn't know who the man was, but I knew something wasn't right. It wasn't the photos that struck me the hardest, though. It was the letter tucked inside the envelope. The letter was simple. It was typed, with no return address. It just said, "Your wife is not who you think she is. Watch her closely." That's it. No signature, no explanation. I didn't know what to do. I stood there, holding the photos and letter in my hands, feeling like the ground had been pulled out from beneath me. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Every part of me wanted to believe this was a mistake, that there was some explanation, but deep down, I knew it wasn't. Kara was hiding something. Something big. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I needed time to think, to process everything I had seen. But I knew one thing for sure. My life was no longer what I thought it was. And that night marked the beginning of the end. The questions I had weren't just about the photos. They were about everything. About who Kara really was. And whatever she was hiding, I was going to find out. I spent the next few days in a haze, unable to think straight. I couldn't tell anyone about what had happened. Who would I talk to? The photos, the letter, it all felt like a bad dream, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a mistake. Kara had been hiding something from me, and I needed to understand what it was. The house felt different now. The silence between us wasn't just the absence of noise. It was thick, suffocating. We'd sit together for dinner, and it was like we were two strangers. The small talk, the polite exchanges, it all felt forced. I kept asking myself, how long had she been doing this? How long had I been blind to it all? Kara seemed normal on the surface. She went to work, came home at the usual times, and carried on as if everything was fine. But I couldn't get those photos out of my mind. The more I thought about it, the more I realized just how little I knew about her life outside of our home. Her work was her work, her friends were. Well, she didn't have many. So where was she going? Who was she meeting? One evening, I decided to follow her. It wasn't something I ever thought I would do. I've always believed in trust, in giving people their space. But something had changed. I needed answers, and I wasn't going to sit in the dark anymore. I didn't make it obvious, of course. I waited until Kara had gotten into her car and left for the evening. I slipped out a few minutes later, driving behind her as she made her way down the familiar streets. My heart was racing, but I tried to calm myself. I wasn't sure what I expected to find, but deep down, I knew it wasn't going to be anything good. She drove for about 20 minutes, heading to a part of the city I didn't recognize. A quiet, industrial area with abandoned warehouses and empty streets. I stayed a few blocks behind, trying not to get too close, trying not to be noticed. When she finally pulled into an old, run-down building, I parked down the street and waited. For almost an hour, I sat there, watching the lights flicker on and off in the building. I couldn't hear anything from where I was parked, but my gut told me something was off. Then, just as I was about to turn back, I saw her. Kara stepped out of the car and walked into the building. She wasn't alone. A man followed her in. My breath caught in my throat. It wasn't just any man. It was the man from the photos. The one I didn't recognize. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to rush out of the car and confront them both, but I couldn't move. I was frozen. What was she doing here? Who was he to her? The questions were coming faster than I could process. I stayed there for what felt like hours, my mind racing with anger, confusion, and disbelief. By the time Kara came back out, it was late. She looked different. Her face was flushed, like she had been exerting herself, and there was a strange look in her eyes, like she was coming down from something. She got in her car quickly and drove off, and I, too, followed her back home. I couldn't think about anything else, except that I needed to know more. I couldn't confront her now. It wasn't the right time. But the next day, I decided I'd do something I hadn't planned on doing before, something that felt wrong, but I had to do it. I had to get into the safe. I had no idea what else I might find, but the photos and the letter were just the beginning. I needed answers, and if Kara wasn't going to give them to me, I would find them myself. I waited until she left for work, then I made my move. I stood in front of the safe, staring at the lock, my hands shaking. The code she used had been in my mind for days. I didn't know why I was so certain, but I was. I typed it in. 1 click. 2 clicks. The door swung open. Inside, it wasn't what I expected. There were no more photos, no more letters. But there was something else. Something that made my heart race even faster. A small black book. It wasn't anything special at first glance, just a plain leather-bound journal. But as I picked it up, something fell out from between the pages. A series of receipts, all dated from the past 6 months. They weren't for groceries or anything mundane like that. These were receipts for hotel rooms. Expensive ones. The kind of places I knew Kara couldn't afford to stay at on her own. The more I looked, the more I realized what I was holding. Proof. Proof that she had been meeting him. But this wasn't just an affair, it was something deeper. Something that I still couldn't fully understand. I slid the receipts back into the book and closed the safe, my mind spinning. I had more questions now than I did before, but one thing was certain. Kara had been hiding something far bigger than I could have ever imagined. And I was about to find out just how far she'd gone. The next few days were a blur of tension and silence. I'd go to work, return home, and pretend like everything was normal. But the truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about that black book and the receipts hidden inside the safe. Each night, I'd lie awake, replaying everything in my mind. Every detail, every word Kara had said, every look she gave me. It was all there, like puzzle pieces that I couldn't seem to put together. It wasn't just about the affair anymore. It wasn't just about her betraying me. No, it felt like there was something much bigger going on. This wasn't some simple infidelity. This was a web of lies, and I was trapped in the middle of it, trying to find my way out. I knew I had to confront her. I had to ask her about the receipts, about the hotels, about the man I had seen with her in the photos. But something inside me told me to wait. I couldn't rush into this. There was too much at stake. Instead, I started digging. I took the receipts and looked up the hotels they corresponded to. I found each one online, reading the reviews, checking the locations, and then I noticed something odd. All the hotels were in different cities, scattered across the state. She wasn't just having an affair with this guy. She was traveling with him, staying in places far from home. The more I researched, the more I realized just how deep this went. I couldn't help but wonder why. Why was she doing this? What was the real reason behind all of this? There had to be something more, something I wasn't seeing. Then, one evening, it happened. I was sitting in my living room, staring at my phone, trying to make sense of everything, when I got a message. It was from an unknown number. "Don't go to the house tomorrow." The message was short, but the words hit me like a punch to the gut. I immediately checked the number, but it was untraceable. I felt a chill run down my spine. Who was this? Why would someone send me this message? And what did it mean? I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It was like the walls were closing in around me, and I couldn't tell if it was paranoia or something much darker. The thought that someone knew what was happening, knew what Kara was hiding, was unsettling. It was clear to me that there was more to this than just a simple affair. Someone was trying to warn me, but why? And who? The next day, I decided to take a risk. I wasn't going to just sit idly by anymore. I had to know the truth, even if it meant confronting Kara with everything I had. I waited until she left for work, and I followed her again. I wasn't sure where she was going this time, but I couldn't afford to miss any more signs. The message had stirred something in me. It felt like I was on the edge of uncovering something huge, something that would change everything. I tailed her for over an hour, staying far enough behind not to be noticed, until she pulled into a parking lot outside a building I recognized. It was an office building, one that I knew had been abandoned for years. But there she was, stepping out of her car and walking toward the entrance. My heart skipped a beat. What was she doing here? I parked a few blocks away, watching from the shadows as Kara entered the building. I waited for what felt like an eternity, trying to make sense of everything. The building was dark, empty. Why would she be here? And more importantly, why didn't she tell me? As I was about to get out of the car and confront her, my phone buzzed. Another message. "Stay away from the building." It was from the same unknown number. I froze. Who the hell was sending me these messages? It was getting too much to handle, and the anxiety was eating at me. I was so close to the answers, yet it felt like someone was trying to pull me away from the truth. But I couldn't stop now. I had to find out what was going on, and I wasn't going to let some anonymous person stop me. I waited a few more minutes, then made my move. I walked toward the building, staying low, trying to avoid being seen. The entrance was locked, but there was a side door that looked like it hadn't been used in years. I tried the handle. It turned. Inside, the building was cold and abandoned. The air smelled stale, and dust covered everything. The only light came from a faint glow through broken windows. I crept through the hallways, my footsteps echoing off the walls. Then I heard it. Voices. I paused, listening intently. One voice was familiar. It was Kara's. I moved closer, inching toward the sound. The closer I got, the more I could hear. Kara was speaking to someone, her tone sharp, almost angry. "You don't understand," I heard her say. "I have to do this. I don't have a choice anymore." I felt my pulse quicken. What was she talking about? What did she mean, "I don't have a choice"? I crept around the corner and froze. There she was, standing in front of a man I didn't recognize. But the thing that shocked me the most was the look in her eyes. It wasn't just the look of a woman caught in an affair. No, this was something deeper, something darker. She was in too deep, and whatever they were talking about, it wasn't just about her cheating on me. It was something far worse, something that involved me. I needed to know what it was, but I had to be careful. Whatever game she was playing, I was about to find out exactly how far she'd gone. I pressed myself against the cold, cracked wall, barely breathing. My heart thudded in my chest as I watched Kara and the man talking in hushed tones. I couldn't hear everything they were saying, but I caught a few words. "It's getting dangerous," and "we need to move fast." I felt a sharp pang in my gut. What was happening? What were they talking about? This wasn't just an affair. This was something much bigger, and I was in the middle of it, caught in a trap I didn't even know existed. I leaned forward slightly, trying to get a better view. The man was tall, dressed in a dark suit, and his face was hard to make out in the dim light. But it wasn't his appearance that caught my attention. It was the way Kara was looking at him, almost desperate, like she was relying on him for something important. They moved deeper into the building, and I knew I had to follow. I wasn't going to sit back and let this slip through my fingers. The adrenaline coursed through my veins as I crept after them, trying to stay out of sight. The hallway twisted and turned, and I found myself in a part of the building I didn't recognize. It was darker here, with only the faintest flicker of light coming from a broken window at the end of the hall. The further I went, the more unsettling it became. The air was heavy, thick with dust, and the silence was suffocating. Then, I reached a door. It was slightly ajar, and I could hear their voices more clearly now. Kara was speaking rapidly, her words tumbling out in a rush. "Are you sure this is the right time?" she asked, her voice tight with fear. The man responded, but his words were too quiet for me to catch. I moved closer, my breath shallow. What were they planning? What was Kara involved in? I wanted to burst through the door, confront them both, demand answers. But something inside me told me to hold off. I had to understand the full picture before making my move. Suddenly, Kara's voice broke through the air again. "I don't care what happens. We're in too deep. We have to finish this." I froze. Finish what? I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I stepped forward, just a little too loudly. The floor creaked beneath my feet, and I cursed under my breath. I held my breath, praying they didn't hear me. But the door swung open. Kara stepped out, and her eyes locked with mine. For a moment, neither of us said anything. Her face was pale, her lips parted in shock. "Zane," she whispered, her voice a mix of surprise and guilt. "What are you doing here?" I stared at her, my mind racing. She didn't seem surprised enough. It was almost as if she had been expecting me. "Don't try to lie to me, Kara," I said, my voice cold, though my heart was pounding. "I know everything." She swallowed hard, then glanced behind her at the man. The look in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. She was cornered. "We can explain," she said, but I could see the panic rising in her. She knew this was it. I stepped closer, not backing down. "Explain? You've been hiding something from me for months. What is all this? What is going on, Kara?" She didn't answer at first. Instead, she took a deep breath and glanced at the man behind her. He said nothing, just stood there, looking at me with cold indifference. "We're in this together now, Zane," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "There's no turning back." Her words hung in the air like a threat. But before I could respond, she grabbed my arm, pulling me into the room. The man followed us in, closing the door behind him. The room was small, dimly lit, and it smelled musty, like old wood and dampness. There were boxes stacked against the walls, but the most disturbing thing in the room was the large wooden table in the center. Kara pushed me toward the table and sat me down, her hands trembling. The man took a seat across from me, his expression unreadable. "What is this?" I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. "What are you involved in, Kara?" She looked at me, her eyes full of regret, but also something else, something darker. "It's not what you think," she started. "I didn't want you to get involved in this, Zane. I didn't want to hurt you." "Then why are you doing this?" I shouted. "What is all this secrecy? Who is he? What is going on?" The man spoke for the first time, his voice low and firm. "It's bigger than you think. This isn't just about her and me. This is about you too." I stared at him, confused and terrified. "What do you mean? What do I have to do with this?" The man leaned forward, his eyes cold. "You're in danger, Zane, and you need to know the truth. All of it." My heart skipped a beat. I couldn't wrap my head around what he was saying. Danger? What the hell was going on? But before I could press him for answers, Kara spoke again, her voice trembling. "I never wanted you to find out like this. I swear. But we're already too deep. There's no way out." I looked at her, searching her face for some sign that this was all just a bad dream. But there was nothing. She was trapped in this mess too. And so was I. I was about to find out just how deep this rabbit hole went, and I wasn't sure I was going to survive it. The air in the room felt heavy, thick with tension and fear. I could barely think straight, everything spinning in my head. Kara was sitting across from me, her hands trembling, her face pale and drawn. The man, whoever he was watching me with cold, calculating eyes. The silence between us was suffocating. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Danger? What danger? What was happening here? The pieces of this twisted puzzle were starting to fit together in ways I wasn't prepared for. Kara looked at me, her eyes filled with regret, but there was also something else there, something that told me she wasn't in control anymore. She was trapped, just like I was. But I didn't know how far this thing had gone. I didn't know if I could trust her anymore, if I could believe a word she said. "I'll explain everything, Zane," she whispered, her voice shaking. "But you need to understand, it's not just about me. It's about all of us." I stared at her, struggling to make sense of her words. "What do you mean, all of us?" I asked, my voice hoarse with confusion and anger. "What are you involved in?" She took a deep breath, glancing at the man beside her. He didn't speak, just sat there, his face unreadable. I was desperate for answers, but none of this was adding up. Everything I thought I knew about Kara, about us, was being shattered in front of me. "I'm part of something bigger," Kara continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Something I couldn't get out of. But it's dangerous, Zane. I didn't want to drag you into it. But now I don't have a choice." I leaned forward, my mind racing. "What is this, Kara? What are you talking about?" The man finally spoke. "It's not just her, Zane. You've been involved in this from the moment you married her." His words hit me like a slap in the face. "What the hell are you talking about?" I spat, my pulse pounding. "I'm not involved in anything. I'm just trying to understand what's going on." The man leaned back in his chair, his eyes never leaving mine. "You've been a part of this since the beginning. Since Kara brought you into her world." I felt my stomach drop. Her world? I looked at Kara, but she wasn't meeting my gaze. She seemed to shrink back, like she was afraid to tell me the full truth. The truth that I was already too deep in. The man's gaze hardened. "You really don't know, do you?" I shook my head, my mind struggling to process what he was saying. "Know what? There's a reason she married you, Zane," he said slowly, his voice deliberate. "You were never just a husband. You were a pawn." My breath caught in my throat. "A pawn? What are you talking about?" Kara's eyes flickered with a hint of guilt, and I could see the tears welling up in her eyes. She knew I wasn't ready to hear what he was about to say. She didn't want me to know, but it was too late now. "The organization we're part of," the man continued, his voice low and steady. "It's not just a network, Zane. It's a plan that you've been unknowingly involved in from the start." My mind was spinning. What was he saying? A plan? I didn't understand. Kara spoke then, her voice barely audible. "I never wanted you to know. I never wanted you to be a part of it. But it's too late now. They've been watching you, watching both of us. You were never just a regular guy." I looked at her, my heart pounding in my chest. What the hell is this? What did I get myself into? The man leaned forward, his eyes cold. "You were a key player, Zane. A part of something much bigger than yourself. A piece of a puzzle that's been in motion long before you even met Kara." My mind raced. A key player? What did he mean? How had I been involved in something so dangerous without even knowing it? Kara's voice cracked as she spoke again. "It's too complicated, Zane. You wouldn't believe me even if I tried to explain. They used me. They used both of us. And now they're closing in." I shook my head, disbelief and fear warring inside me. "What the hell is going on, Kara? What is this organization? Who are they?" The man stood up, his movements slow and deliberate. "We don't have time to explain everything, Zane. But you need to understand something. Your life, your entire existence, has been manipulated. They've been pulling strings from the beginning." My pulse quickened. "What do you mean, manipulated? I didn't ask for this." Kara finally looked at me, her eyes filled with sorrow. "I never wanted this either. But it's too late. I'm in too deep. And now, so are you." I felt the weight of her words like a stone in my stomach. I was trapped. All this time, I thought I was just living a normal life. But now I realized, nothing was normal. Nothing was as it seemed. And the worst part? I had no idea who I could trust anymore. Not even Kara. My mind was a storm, confusion swirling around every thought. The words the man had spoken kept echoing in my head, bouncing off the walls of my consciousness. A pawn. Manipulated. The more I tried to process what he was saying, the more lost I felt. Kara was involved in something I couldn't even begin to comprehend, and now, apparently, so was I. The silence in the room was suffocating, broken only by the sound of my own ragged breath. I stared at Kara, who was looking down at her hands in her lap, unable to meet my eyes. She seemed smaller now, as if the weight of whatever she had been carrying was too much to bear. The man stood by the door, arms crossed, watching me with cold indifference. It was clear he didn't care about me, about my confusion. He had a job to do, and that job was to pull me deeper into this mess I hadn't asked for. "We don't have much time, Zane," he said, breaking the silence. "If you're going to understand any of this, you need to know the truth. But you have to decide right now. Are you in, or are you out?" I blinked, the question hitting me harder than anything he'd said so far. In or out? What did that even mean? How could I be in when I hadn't even known this world existed until 5 minutes ago? Kara looked up at me then, her eyes pleading. She didn't want me to know. She didn't want to drag me into this any further, but it was already too late. I was already in it, whether I liked it or not. "What is this, Kara?" I finally whispered, my voice shaking. "What are you involved in? What did you bring me into?" She took a deep breath, her eyes flickering with fear. It's hard to explain, Zane. You wouldn't understand unless you saw it for yourself." "I don't need to see it. I need answers," I said, my voice rising in frustration. "What the hell is going on? What did you get me into?" She hesitated, and the man stepped forward, his gaze never leaving mine. "This organization," he began, his voice calm but menacing, "has been operating under the radar for years. What Kara didn't tell you is that it's bigger than just her. She was recruited by me because she had access to something important. And you were always meant to be a part of it." I felt a cold chill run down my spine. "Recruited? By you? What are you talking about?" Kara's face crumpled, and she finally spoke. "I didn't want to. I didn't choose this, Zane. But it was too late. When I got involved, I didn't realize the scope of it. I thought I could just walk away. But I couldn't. I was lost, utterly lost. This wasn't the woman I thought I knew. This wasn't the life I thought I had. Everything was unraveling right before my eyes, and I was powerless to stop it." The man continued, ignoring my questions. "They've been watching you, Zane. From the moment you met Kara. You were always a target, a piece in a much larger game. And now, you're too far in. The only way out is to finish what's been started." My stomach dropped. "What does that mean? Finish what's been started?" The man smiled darkly. "It means that you're part of something that's bigger than both of us. You've already made your choice by marrying Kara. Now, it's time to play your part." I couldn't breathe. The walls seemed to close in on me. "No, I'm not playing anyone's part. I didn't sign up for any of this." Kara's eyes filled with tears, and she stood up, walking toward me. "Zane, please. I didn't want this to happen. But it's too late. You've been marked. You can't go back now." I felt like I was suffocating. My life was slipping away from me, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Everything I thought I knew about my wife, about my life, was a lie. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of the chaos swirling around me. The man was watching me closely, his eyes cold and calculating. "It's not your fault, Zane. But you have to understand, this isn't just about us. It's about power and control. We're on the brink of something huge, something that could change everything." I couldn't wrap my mind around it. Power? Control? What did any of this have to do with me? Kara took my hand, her touch trembling. "I never wanted to put you in this position," she whispered. "But now you're involved, and there's no turning back. We're all in this together. And if you don't help us, we'll all fall." I stared at her, my mind racing. Help them? Help who? Help with what? The man stepped forward, his voice sharp. "We need you, Zane. We need your skills, your knowledge. You've been trained without even knowing it." My head was spinning. "Trained? What are you talking about?" Kara squeezed my hand. "Your job, your skills, your ability to think, everything you've done so far. It's all part of this. You've been groomed for this moment." I felt like I was going to pass out. My life was a lie. The woman I loved, the life we built, it was all a smokescreen. And now, I had no choice but to face the truth. I looked at Kara, at the man standing before me, and I realized something. There was no going back. I was in this now. And the only way out was to uncover the secrets they were keeping from me. The secrets that would change everything I knew about myself and the world I thought I was living in. I could feel my hands trembling as I tried to process what was happening. My head was spinning, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely out of control. Kara, the woman I loved, was involved in something so much darker than I could ever have imagined. And I was right there with her, dragged into a world I didn't understand. The man, who still hadn't given me his name, was watching me closely, as if waiting for me to snap. I couldn't think straight, my thoughts racing in 1,000 directions. "What do you want from me?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The man stepped closer, his eyes cold and calculating. "We need you to help us finish what we started. You've been part of this long before you even realized it." I felt a wave of nausea rise in my stomach. I had no idea what they were talking about, but I knew one thing. I was drowning in a situation that was far beyond my understanding. "I don't know how to help you," I managed to say, my voice cracking. "I don't even know what's going on." Kara's voice softened, her eyes pleading with me. "You do, Zane. Everything you've done, the way you think, the way you approach problems. You're exactly what we need. You've been prepared for this." I shook my head, trying to push the words out of my mind. "Prepared for what? I'm just a regular guy. I don't even know what you're talking about." The man spoke again, his tone more forceful this time. "That's exactly the point. You've been trained without even knowing it. Your skills, your job, your life, it's all been leading to this moment." I felt a chill run through me. What did he mean? What kind of training had I gone through without realizing it? I looked at Kara, but she didn't offer any answers. She just stood there, waiting for me to absorb everything. I stood up abruptly, pacing the small room, my mind racing. This doesn't make sense. I've been living my life. I've been focused on work, on us. I didn't sign up for any of this. I turned to Kara, desperate for some kind of explanation. "What do they want from me? What do you want from me?" Kara's eyes filled with tears, and she stepped closer to me. "Zane, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this. But now I can't get out. We're both in this, and there's no way to walk away." I felt a rush of anger flood through me. "You've been lying to me this entire time. All of it. The safe, the messages, the trips, everything. You've been hiding this from me, and now you're telling me I'm a part of it?" Her face crumpled with guilt. "I never meant for you to find out like this. I never wanted you to get caught up in it. But now, there's no choice. You're in too deep." I ran a hand through my hair, feeling the weight of everything crashing down on me. "What are you talking about, Kara? What's the end game here? What are we supposed to do?" The man finally spoke again, his voice low and steady. "We're going to take control. But we need your skills, Zane. We need someone like you on our side to make it happen. Someone who understands the bigger picture." I stared at him, trying to make sense of his words. "Control? What do you mean? What is this really about?" Kara's eyes flickered, but she didn't speak. It was as if the man was the one who held all the answers now. He was the one who controlled the narrative, who controlled Kara's fate, and now mine. "We're building something," he said. "A new world. A world where the old systems no longer have power, where the rules are rewritten." I felt a knot form in my stomach. "And I'm supposed to help you with this? Help you change the world? I don't even know who you are, what this organization is. What am I even supposed to believe anymore?" The man took a step forward, his voice colder than before. "You don't have to believe anything, Zane. You don't have a choice. You're already in it." I could feel my blood run cold. "What do you mean, in it? What's going to happen to me?" "You'll help us," he said. "And when it's done, you'll have power. You'll have control." It was all too much to process. I was caught in something that felt like a nightmare, and I had no way out. The man and Kara were speaking in riddles, but there was one thing that was crystal clear. I was trapped. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure if I could trust Kara anymore. She was part of this. She had been hiding it from me, and now I had to decide whether to continue down this path or risk losing everything. My mind raced, but there was no escape from the truth that was starting to sink in. There was no going back. I was already part of their plan, and I had to decide if I was going to fight it or let them drag me even deeper. I stood there, my mind a whirlwind of fear, anger, and disbelief. The weight of everything, of what Kara had kept from me, of what the man was demanding, felt like it was crushing me. I had never felt so lost, so out of control. But as the silence stretched on, something inside me shifted. The anger, the confusion, it was still there, but underneath it was a growing sense of clarity. I looked at Kara, really looked at her, for the first time in what felt like forever. The tears in her eyes weren't just regret, they were fear. Fear of what we had become, and fear of what was coming. But there was still something in her, a spark, a glimmer of the woman I had married. She wasn't just a pawn in someone else's game. She was a person, someone I still cared about, even after everything that had happened. I took a deep breath and walked toward her. Kara, I said, my voice steady, though my heart was still racing. I don't know what all this means, but I'm not going to let it destroy us. I don't care what you've been dragged into. I don't care what he's offering. We're not doing this. Not together. Not anymore. She looked up at me, her face filled with surprise. Zane, we're going to fix this, Kara. I continued, my voice stronger now. We're going to figure this out, but we're doing it on our terms. We're not part of some bigger plan. We're not pawns. We're people, and I'm not walking away from you. She looked at me, hope flickering in her eyes, and for the first time in what felt like ages, I saw her smile. A real smile. It was small, but it was there, and it was enough. The man, who had been silent all this time, narrowed his eyes, clearly frustrated by the turn of events. But I didn't care. Whatever game he had been playing, whatever power he thought he had over me, it didn't matter anymore. This wasn't about him. It was about us. About Kara and me. And no one, no organization, no hidden agenda, was going to take that away from us. I turned to him, my voice firm. You can leave now. Whatever this is, whatever you want, we're done. This ends today. For a long moment, the man didn't move. But then, with a quiet sneer, he nodded and walked toward the door. You're making a mistake, he said, his voice low. You don't understand what you're walking away from. I didn't care. I didn't need to understand it anymore. All I needed to understand was that I had a choice. And I was choosing to fight for the life I wanted, the life I deserved, with Kara. As he left, I turned back to her. Her eyes were still filled with tears, but now they were different. They weren't just tears of guilt. They were tears of relief, of hope. She stepped toward me, her hands trembling as she reached for mine. I'm sorry, Zane, she whispered. I never wanted you to be part of this. I never wanted to hurt you. I squeezed her hand, shaking my head. You didn't hurt me. We'll figure this out. Together. And for the first time in a long time, I truly believed it. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew one thing for sure. Kara and I had a chance to rebuild. We had a chance to start over, to leave the darkness behind and create our own path forward. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. We'd have to rebuild trust, confront the past, and face whatever challenges came our way. But for the first time, I felt hope. Hope that we could make it through, that we could find our way back to each other. As we stood there, hand in hand, I knew we were stronger than anything that had tried to tear us apart. And no matter what came next, we'd face it together. This was just the beginning.